And we want to welcome in national baseball writer from Baseball America, Kyle Glaser. And Kyle, let's talk a little bit about what prospects you might think the Orioles will be bringing up during the month of September for that final month when they can, go up to 40 men at that point.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious guy is Ryan Mountcastle. This has been a pretty prolific hitter in the Orioles system for a few years now. People aren't sure where he's going to play defensively. He was drafted as a shortstop, moved to third base, then moved to first base, but he can really hit, and there's a sense he'll be up. Austin Hayes, who we saw play for the Orioles 2 seasons ago now, he's back up in AAA. He's had some injuries again this year, but he has a chance to be up as well. Those are the two main guys. There are some guys down in the lower levels. Yusniel Diaz is in AA. He was the top prospect the Orioles acquired from Manny Machado last year. He might not be ready yet, but there's always a chance. But I would say Ryan Mountcastle is the main guy.
Do you think the Orioles worry about starting a clock on any player in the minors or when it gets to September?
It's always a consideration, but for the Orioles right now, they have to kind of make that case-by-case judgment of, okay, as we look to build here, is it going to be more beneficial to us to have a guy come up, get that first taste of the major leagues, and carry that into potentially his first full season next year, or delay that clock a little bit? And some of that's going to depend on the player and where they are developmentally.
Kyle, let's talk a little about pitching. Michael Bauman, who's out of Jacksonville, he's with Bowie this year. He pitches a no-hitter. Do you think he's got enough stuff to make it big time in the big leagues?
There's been a sense for a while that he's a potential big league pitcher. Coming into the year, people liked his fastball. It was a big fastball, but his secondary pitches and his control weren't where they needed to be, and so a lot of people thought he'd probably be a reliever in the end. This year, the slider and changeup have really taken jumps forward. All of a sudden, he has 3 pitches. The control is still, it's fine. It's not great, but it's fine. So there's a sense that in the end, it might still be more of a mid to back of the rotation starter. Maybe it is a bullpen arm if the secondaries stall in their development. But there's no question he should be able to help the Orioles in some capacity here in the coming years.
Talking about Michael Bauman with the national baseball writer from Baseball America, Kyle Glaser. Let's talk about some under-the-radar players that the Orioles have in the minors. Can you cite some of those?
Sure. Mason McCoy is an interesting shortstop. He was among the minor league hits leaders through the All-Star break. It's a lot of singles. It's not big power profile or anything like that, but consistently gets the bat on the ball. He's kind of always hit. Someone who goes under the radar, and who knows, maybe he comes up and he gives the Orioles kind of a contact and on-base threat that they could use at the top of the order.
Let's talk about Gunnar Henderson, who may be the most polite young man I've ever talked to in all my career. At 17 years of age, he was yes-sirring and no-sirring everybody that he ever spoke to. What about, he was the second pick for the Orioles in this most recent draft. Tell us a little about what you think of Gunnar Henderson.
Anytime you have a left-handed hitter with some power potential, it's going to be exciting. That's really his calling card. He can hit for average, but it's probably going to be more home runs over batting average, power over hit, as they say in the scouting community in the end. And he plays shortstop right now, and there's a sense he can stay in the infield, whether that's shortstop or third base. Scouts are split a little bit, but either way, you're talking about a potentially left-handed hitter giving you 250, 260, 20 to 30 home runs, playing left side of the infield. That's a very valuable player, and he might be able to even outdo that performance in his peak years.
Over the last couple of years, the Orioles drafted D.L. Hall and Grayson as his #1 pitchers, and they both played in the Futures game this past Futures game. Tell us a little bit about their chances of possibly making it sometime to the big leagues in 2020 or maybe 2021.
Well, D.L. Hall's further along than Grayson Rodriguez, which makes sense. He's a year older, was drafted a year before. We do see some of the best pitchers in high Class A, where D.L. Hall has been most of this year, make it to the majors the following year. But these are two very, very young arms. I think you always kind of want to take the under on young pitchers coming out of high school, what year they make it to the major leagues. I think it's more likely we see them both in 2021. But Hall has a chance for 2020. Rodriguez, as talented as he is, this is a very young kid. He's a year out of high school. There's another full year of development at least before he's ready to be a major league pitcher.
As of the moment, the Orioles are probably looking at the #1 or the #2 choice in the 2020 draft. What are your expectations for the Orioles and where you think they might be angling at what position?
You just have to take the best player available. When you're that high up in the draft, when you start getting into games about, signing bonuses and trying to package guys, you end up making mistakes. The best thing for the Orioles is take the best player available. And The good thing is the 2020 class is considered pretty strong. There's a lot of very good players, both on the college and high school side. Spencer Torkelson, the first baseman at Arizona State, is considered the top draft prospect at this point in time. You also have some very good pitchers as well in the SEC coming out of Georgia and Mississippi State, and Emerson Hancock and JT Ginn. So the Orioles will have some options, but you really just want to take the best player available when you're picking as high as the Orioles probably will be picking.
It looks like Major League Baseball is using a different baseball this year, and they've actually put it into the AAA level in baseball with a lot more home runs on the minor league level, including the ones that we're seeing on the Major League level. Size things up about the home runs and the balls sailing out of the ballpark with the current baseball.
Well, we've seen the difference at the Major League level. Once again, we're on pace to see a record number of home runs hit this year. Most guys ever hitting 30 home runs in a season, 20 home runs in a season. At AAA, it's been even worse in a way, if you will, because the pitchers aren't quite as good. They don't throw quite as hard. They don't locate quite as well. If they did, they'd be in the majors. And as a result, you're seeing some ridiculous offensive explosions in AAA. We're on pace to see well over 1,000 more home runs in AAA this year than we saw last year. At one point, that pace was closer to 2,000. It's come down a little bit. But balls that, hitters think are fly balls, they're slamming their bat down in frustration. They're looking up, and the baseball's 10 rows deep to left center. So there's a bit of an issue going on right now in AAA. You have some very high elevation ballparks, particularly in the West, in places like Las Vegas or Reno or Albuquerque. And so the ball's flying, and a lot of pitchers are frustrated. A lot of hitters are putting up crazy numbers. You think about in the major leagues that 100 OPS means you're a really good player. The average OPS in AAA right now is 815. It's gotten kind of crazy, and there's talk of change that needs to happen, but no one is sure Major League Baseball will go back to using the balls they did before to help bring some of these offensive numbers back to earth.
Well, Kyle, as always, we appreciate your insight. We'll be looking forward to reading you with Baseball America. We appreciate you taking some time to be with us. 1O's Extra Pregame.